Hello and welcome back. I guess I'm not sure if you're back or not, but anyways. So this is my better, or hopefully at least better, my improved design on the villager vending machine that I did a couple days ago. So the problem with the old one was that if I requested, let's say I requested 2, then I got number 2. But what I had to do is I had to send them back before I could request a new one. Now, the system doesn't care. And here comes number 12. So, the good thing about this as well is the longest time, which is the one over there, the longest time a villager can take to actually get here. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds. That fits 15 villagers, obviously. What I mentioned last time as well is I wasn't sure which direction this can be built in, but I now know you can only build this facing north or facing west because this is essentially what the cells look like, right? When the minecart's sent off, it chooses that direction. Not because I make it, but because it does. Um, so therefore, if I were to build one of these in this direction, what would happen is the villagers would get sent back in the system. If you're going to build this, it's north or it's west. That's the two options you have. But let's just quickly look at the specifics of this thing. It's 13 blocks wide, 10 blocks high, and 27 blocks long. And that's counting from this row of blocks. So these are not a part of the actual machine. Oh, well, I had a little manual in there, but I forgot you can't just take them out like in, survival. But done's done. No manual for us. But the nice thing about this is you can select any villager. It doesn't matter. And you just wait a couple seconds. And the villager's there. So if I want my Luck of the Sea 3 villager, I think that's what he is. He's close. So he's really close actually. Yeah. Or I think this is bookshelf one. I have 7 of those, I think. Yeah. How this works that you can select whichever one you want is when you request a villager. Obviously, these fence gates open and the villager gets sent off. Let's simulate that this is the villager holding cell. So when the villager is there, this lever is down. Now, in this configuration, a villager is there, nothing's happening, it's closed, so it's going to send the villagers on. And if I request a villager, nothing happens. But if I request a villager and the villager's gone, right? He comes here. It's still closed. But when I request a new villager, this one opens. And when the villager comes, it closes again. The only thing this really does is it makes sure that when you request a villager, it doesn't open this. Instead, it waits for you to send him back because the only non-occupied cell is where you want to send him. When you press the button, there's only one villager missing, and that cell is where you want the villager to go, and therefore that's where he goes. How this works, I don't know what to call this gate, but I'll have a little sheet on the screen right now just to tell you what it does. But essentially, what this does is it fires this hopper, right? What this does is it locks the hopper, but when it gets a signal, it lets the item through into the dropper, which makes the gate open, right? Because there's a item in the dropper. And when the villager comes back, of course, it fires the dropper. So then there's the item in the item hopper. But anyways, let's head on over and make a tutorial for this thing. So here I've marked out the area for the actual machine. It will go inside this white stained glass right here. This is where the button will sit, and here is all you'll need. First of all, you'll need almost 5 stacks of any building block and 34 slabs of any kind. It doesn't matter. Of course, I've chosen specific colors to make it look cool, but it does not matter what you use as long as it's full blocks and it's half slabs. When it comes to the redstone, you'll need 1 stack and 35 redstone dust, 47 redstone repeaters, 23 comparators, 63 torches, 20 blocks of redstone or redstone blocks, 15 redstone lamps, 30 observers, 15 oak fence gates, 31 rails, 34 powered rails, 15 detector rails, 15 droppers, 15 hoppers, and 15 of any item. It does not matter what item, so that's why I have the barrier. It's just, it doesn't matter. One button, one lever, and you don't need 20 lecterns, but I recommend using that many because you'll make sure the villager can actually pathfind. Of course, if you want fishermen instead, you'll have barrels, but I don't know why I would want fishermen. So following the last one, I will still be using colored blocks, but you don't have to follow that exactly. To start with, just to make sure that we know where we are in this world, let's get the lectern down. So this is going to be where you're going to stand and, you know, select your villager and everything. This is probably around about how it's going to look, because, yeah, you need this block is going to need to be covered up. I'll get to that later. But behind this lectern, or rather below, we'll place 2 blocks so we get 2 blocks out. I'm actually going to use red concrete for the powered rails. What we'll do here is we'll go 3 blocks to the side, then 1 block out, and then we're going to make a staircase that goes 3 blocks up. So 1, 2, 3. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mimic this staircase, but just on the other side here. So this is where the villagers are going to drop down. So we also need a block here so that when the villagers get here, they're going to drop down instead of flying past. So this staircase is fairly simple because you go 3 blocks up behind this block, which is where the villagers are going to be. Then you go 1 down, 1 more down, and then last block down. So you get 2 staircases that are opposite of each other. Now we'll place 15 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And somewhere in the center here, we're going to place a redstone block. This is to power the powered rails that we're going to put later. So you could have this exactly centered, but there's no point really. As long as it's going to power it all, doesn't really matter exactly where you put it. Now that we've got that settled, if you come 1 block in from where the staircase begins, place a block there, and then 1 on the opposite side, 1 block back. Then you continue going backwards, skipping a block on each side until you get to this point. This is when that really complicated redstone part comes in. On each of these cells, what you're going to do is you're going to come 2 blocks out, then place a block on that first one and break it, because we don't need that. And then fill this in, make a little plus pattern, and remove the middle. Now repeat this process for every single stud. When you've done so, I'd recommend getting down these powered rails in the middle. So you skip this block because this is where a detector rail is going to be, but you place powered rails all the way down here. You also place them up the staircase that we built earlier. To get the detector rails how we want them, we place it where the cell is and then on the block behind it, and then we remove that detector rail. And we repeat this process for every single cell, just like everything else. When you've placed in all your detector rails, we can continue placing the blocks for the redstone, so that's just placing 2 more blocks on top of here. Now we can start putting in the redstone. I could have done this a different order. It would have been easier placing in the torches early. Below each detect rail, outside on the block, on the outside of the block, we're going to place torches. Redstone torches, if you want to be more precise. When you've placed all the torches, you're going to take out your repeaters and place them in the gap of the plus. When all of those are placed in, we continue placing torches on the outside of the outermost block. This is where your hoppers and droppers come in. So on top of each of these redstone torches, we're going to place the droppers facing outwards. When you're done placing your droppers, you can go ahead and place the hoppers facing into the droppers. When that's done, you can whip out your competitors. When you're done placing all your hoppers, you can whip out this thing, the Redstone Comparator, and place it facing out of the dropper. Now that you've still got... Okay, so I apologize for this. I don't know why I didn't realize this earlier, but this thing, it's 1 block back. After this detector rail, you go 2 blocks out instead of 1. And on this one, I don't know if I mentioned that, but you can place it sideways instead to save yourself 1 block. But anyways, now that you've still got full access to the cells, I'd recommend you go place in all of the workbenches for your villagers. And I'd place one on each side of each rail. So over here, even though this one is probably not going to get used, having it there makes sure that every single villager will most likely have a workbench to pathfind to. Now we can begin on the mechanism that actually releases the villagers. So what you want to do is come 3 blocks up from this, go 1 block in, and on that block place a upside down observer. Below that observer you place a block of your choice, and then a redstone lamp, a observer, and then the oak fence. What I recommend here is just making each line as you go. So I've now placed in all of the top observers, and am now placing in all of the blocks. Then the redstone lamps, the final row of observers, and finally the fence gates themselves. When that's done, it should look something like this, or this. You know, it all depends on what blocks you use. Now that we're done with that, what we can do is place blocks in between every single hopper. On the end here, what I've done is just place blocks all the way to this hopper like so. Also on the beginning of each line here, I place a block. This is where the redstone torch is going to sit. So if you go 2 blocks down from this block and place a redstone torch, and of course we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And here comes the first pieces of actual redstone dust, which is going to go on this line right here and follow this line down right here. Which at the end of that, right here, you're going to need a repeater. How this looks doesn't really matter as long as you make sure you don't actually power the dropper with this redstone. Now let's get to use those final blocks of redstone. On this first one, I'm just going to place a block, but in between every other, just place redstone blocks. And on the end here, you can just place a normal block at the corner. Now let's get those rails in. So first of all, we start here at the actual vending machine with 2 powered rails right there. We place a normal rail at the corner and then follow up with powered rails up to the actual cell. This is also where our 1 lever comes into action. We just place it here. This just makes sure all of this is powered. Now we can whip out some of those slabs, and they're going to be placed above on the redstone lamp above each cell. Like so. Now we can go ahead and start placing in the rails. So normal rails here, powered rails on the redstone block, and then you continue. And obviously in the corner here you place a normal rail there and then just go around. So when you place in all the rails, it should look like this. Now let's start on this extremely complicated redstone. So first of all, below, right below the lectern, not the actual block below, but the block below that again, we're gonna place a half slab. And on top of that half slab, we're gonna place a redstone repeater, which we're gonna set to vortex. Then below the button, we're gonna have a block with a redstone dust on it, which we're gonna lead on over here. So this redstone line right here, we just take all the way out to these blocks with redstone torches. Now let's start on the actual Selectra circuit. So on the block in front of the comparator, we go 3 blocks up, and then we remove the bottom ones. Then you go 1 block up and 1 block in. So this is going to be a 1 block gap from the observer. Then keep placing these blocks until you get all the way down to the end. On the inside right here, we're going to place redstone torches. On top of those redstone torches, we're going to place blocks again, and same rule applies all the way. On these blocks, on the observers, we're going to place redstone torches, which is of course going to be a bit annoying. Now on top of these 2 blocks, all the way along, we're going to place redstone repeaters. And an important detail here is that the top line of repeaters need a 1 tick delay. 2 tick, I mean. Now you place blocks behind and above this redstone repeater. And on top of these blocks again, we place redstone dust. So behind here is where the comparator output from the lectern is going to end up. And the important thing about this one is that we set it to subtract mode. And on the side here, we're going to have a redstone dust, a block, a belt 2 blocks down, remove the middle one, and place a redstone torch. And from this block right here, we're going to make a small, tiny staircase, 2 blocks, and then a staircase up like so. Then we place redstone dust on top of those. Now comes the tricky part of snaking this output from the lectern all the way up there without losing any signal strength. Now my setup looks something like this. It's a bit complicated to look at, but I'm going to try to explain it. So after this redstone comparator, there's a block with redstone dust on top. To the right of that, there's a full block and a comparator running this direction with a block and a redstone dust. On top of this comparator, there's a block, and in this direction, there's a block with a comparator and a block with a redstone dust. Then that exact pattern repeats here as well. On top of the comparator, there's a block, and then in this direction, there's a block with a comparator, block, and a redstone dust. Then by placing a block on top of that comparator again, having a comparator in this direction and a block with a redstone dust, we can place a block here and the signal should have arrived. Now, there's probably some other way of doing this, but this is the easiest way I found of snaking the circuit or the signal strength all the way up. One thing to note, by the way, is that right here you will need a block or else the villager will not move when you press that button. Now what you can do is go ahead and place the block of choice inside every single hopper, so 1 item per hopper. When that's all done, we basically do a test fire. So what I want you to do is get the book and just place it into the lectern. Because now you can also check if this is actually working. If you just remove these 2 blocks right here, you can check that the correct fence gate actually opens. So now number 4 and number 4 opens. And what powering this thing has done now is let all the hoppers let the item through to the dropper. Now it's time to figure out if we need a redstone dust or a redstone torch on these blocks right here. So now that the item is in the dropper, the system knows there's not a villager there and it wants a villager to get there, so it's supposed to send the villager into the cell. With redstone dust, we can clearly see that the villager at this point would just be sent by and would not actually get into the cell, so that's not what we want. Therefore, I know that I'm going to need a redstone torch right here. And the same rule applies for the whole row. So if you build this towards the north as well, it's going to be exactly the same for you. Now on this one, same thing. Redstone dust, villagers kind of fly past, but redstone torch is going to be sent in. Now on this side, I'm expecting that redstone dust is the correct one. If I place a redstone torch, it's facing the wrong direction. So here it's just placing in all the dust and then placing the blocks above. Now I could lie and tell you that there's still a lot to do. In truth, the system is done. But of course, same as last time, there's actually not a single villager in the system right now. So I'm quickly just gonna fill up my system, which I do just using this thing. Of course, I have spawn eggs. You would probably have to get them here in some other way, but you could probably use this as an entrance anyways. Now, everything should be in working order, so if I want myself villager number 6, I push the button, and villager number 6 should fall right into my lap. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, probably not short video, but this video. Also another feature, if you just leave him, number 10, he's just gonna get sent back, so there's no villager in this slot. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully you got some use out of this. Maybe you're even gonna use it yourself. It's been fun actually making it work. 'Cause it really bugged me that the last one couldn't actually, request another villager when a villager wasn't this cell because of the issue with them mixing up. But now that's not an issue, and I think it's a tiny bit easier to build as well. But anyways, that's gonna be it for this video. Again, I'm not really sure if I'm gonna make any other videos. Probably not. There's nothing to make videos about, But hope you enjoyed. See ya.